Get ready for the feature presentation.
And now, hey, Daddy, monkey Wi-Fi.
Welcome into another one of our podcasts. Marty McFly here. It's football fever time right now, if you love, well, NFL, since college is over with now. So I thought I would go out and grab an expert. And Rhett, that expert would be you, buddy, from Titans Radio. You're the executive network producer for Titans Radio.
You got it.
Right? That's Rhett Bryan right over there. So we'd love to be talking about the Titans right now going into
Oh, boy, would we ever.
this round of the playoffs. That would be great. And maybe in the grand scheme of things, they're still not that far off from next year talking about them this deep into the
they've got a lot of good
right?
pieces in place. Injury bug hit them pretty hard in key skill position places. But, yeah, they've got good money under the cap in 2019 and free agency and the draft are on the way. The draft going to be here in Nashville this year.
That's exciting, honestly.
But, yeah, I think they've got him a good head coach in Mike Vrabel. Lost their offensive coordinator now. Matt LaFleur is now the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, so it'll be interesting to see who they hire, either from within or from outside.
I think that would be people's question before we get into the playoff matchup, since you brought that up.
Yeah.
I think it would be people's question or thought anyway to say, wait a minute, we just had this offensive coordinator for a short time, and that's I don't know how many that is for Marcus Mariota.
4 and 5 years.
Yeah, so does that hurt?
Potentially, because we've seen other quarterbacks. I mean, Alex Smith, when he was in Kansas City, had and in San Francisco before he went to Washington, he had those almost every year. And he still has, a nice quarterback, played very well in his career. But, yeah, that's who you feel bad for in this is Marcus Mariota. And unfortunate for him, it's the trend in the National Football League to go find the young offensive genius hire. And it started with Sean McVay 2 years ago.
And it's worked out
with the LA Rams.
Yeah, it worked out very well.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about that team in the playoffs here in a minute. But everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay. Well, Matt LaFleur was his offensive coordinator in 2017 there. Now, let's be honest. He was that by title. Sean McVay was calling the plays.
Yeah.
So, in essence, Matt LaFleur called 16 regular season games of offense for the Titans, and he's now the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. That shows you where the trend is going. The one thing he's got to work with is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal there, isn't it?
Not too shabby. They're going to need, they've got a bunch of young, undrafted wide receivers. After the season that the Packers did, they're going to need some key pieces in an offense in places. And but it's pretty good that Matt LaFleur gets to start with a guy like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
not
really.
too shabby.
And so read into what Rhett said there and take the positives from that if you're wondering about the Titans next year. There are a lot of positive things to build on going into next year. Our guest is Rhett Bryan, the executive producer for Titans Radio. Now, the reason we're here talking about the playoffs coming up this week, maybe projecting just a little bit, because that's what everybody does, right?
The old divisional round is here.
So I'm intrigued about a few of these games. I've got my ideas. Let's save the Colts to the very end.
I think that's a very smart move because you're thinking like I'm thinking on that. That's good.
It's exciting. So let's save the Colts to the end. Let's start in the NFC.
Okay.
This Rams game. How you see it? You seen the Rams all season long. They did well, then they slipped off a little bit because you got the Saints doing well. But how do you see the Rams at this point in the playoffs?
Well, it's still. This is going to be outside of the crazy things like a key injury to a major player or the great equalizer in turnovers in a ball game. First of all, there's going to be a lot of people at this game. I mean, you'll have 90,000 people at this thing because this is, it's a divisional round of the playoffs in the second year of pro football coming back to Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's pretty doggone big place.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Coliseum is a big deal. I could see it going either way. I think the Rams take care of it just by a hair in this deal, but the Rams are not the Rams of 2017. Their defense, outside of their nose tackle or defensive tackle in Aaron Donald, who is probably the best at his position in the league with, 19 and a half quarterback sacks, they are not what they once were last year for whatever reason. I think they have very talented secondary, but they have cornerbacks and safeties that take chances in places that they shouldn't. They got Marcus Peters in a trade from the Kansas City Chiefs. They've got some other guys that they gamble. They gamble a lot in coverages. But I like the Rams in this just because
Dallas is lucky to be there. Was that what you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, because they squeaked by Seattle, and that's with Pete Carroll going away from a game plan that he should have stayed with Russell Wilson in the thing, and they have a 24-22 win in Wild Card weekend last weekend. So, but I like the Rams in this. But would it surprise me if Dallas were to squeak something out? Probably not terribly, but I got the Rams in that one.
All right. Now. If I had to pick and I've said this all season long, if I had to pick a Super Bowl contender, I'm picking the Saints.
Oh, no doubt.
To be a Super Bowl contender, I don't see anybody.
The road in the NFC goes through New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't see anybody knocking off the Saints, really. I mean, obviously anything could happen, but the other game, you got to go Saints all the way without even thinking about it.
So that's the Sunday game. That's the 3:40 Central Time kickoff on Fox. The Eagles, who just absolutely got in because of Cody Parkey had a doink off the upright, poor kid in Chicago. But here they are with Nick Foles, and they're going into New Orleans. And, the New Orleans Saints have 2 or 3 things in their favor, one of them being Drew Brees. I mean, he's a fantastic player.
And you want to root for this guy. You want to see it happen.
Sure.
You want to see good things. Always you want to see good things happen with Drew Brees.
One of the other great equalizers in this whole thing is playing in the Superdome. That is a different environment, and it can get loud. And the Saints I've liked since before the season started just because their general manager, he has done so well in drafting players in the last couple of years. Ryan Ramczyk, they put in that offensive line to help bolster and protect Drew Brees. They have young Michael Thomas, who's a great wide receiver. Alvin Kamara they took last year in a third-round pick, and they've got Mark Ingram, who's the smash and dash, big thumping back. They've got all kinds of weapons. They've got defense. I mean, they drafted Marcus Lattimore out of Ohio State a year ago. Good Lord, that guy can play so good. I like New Orleans here. I have from day one, and they might just be the one to beat in the Super Bowl. It's so funny that we talk about them because their head coach, Sean Payton, strolls into the locker room this week with the Lombardi Trophy and $225,000 in cash in his hand. And he said, fellas, this is your winnings when you win the Super Bowl, and this is obviously the trophy when you win the Super Bowl. He said, all you got to do is win 3 bleeping games. And he walked out, and they said the locker room went bananas.
Pretty simple when you think
That's
of it
the kind of thing where you're like, okay, I don't like the Eagles' chances in this because you just stirred up the beast.
Absolutely.
But, I'd certainly like New Orleans.
Our guest is Rhett Bryan, the executive producer for Titans Radio. Now, we're going to move on to the AFC, and tell me where I'm wrong with this thought. The Patriots are not the Patriots of the past.
No.
They seem to be on a downtrend. The Chargers have been a contender all season long. They seem to have gotten better as the season progressed. But if it's playoffs and the word Patriots connected to it, you can never count them out of anything.
And one other word, in Foxborough. 2 other words, I should say.
Yeah.
Their numbers there in the postseason are staggering. But trends and numbers are made to be broken. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I was actually looking at Tom Brady. It's interesting how much money quarterbacks are making. He's like the 21st to 24th, somewhere in there, highest paid quarterback in the league. And that's one of the main reasons why New England has been able to be competitive for 15 years is because, yes, he's been paid well, but he's been paid below the top end of the market.
That's why he's playing so long. He's making up for it.
Yeah. But when you look at Bill Belichick and how he can put together a roster, he's a master at those things. But eventually, you run out of luck in those situations. You have a wide receiver like Chris Hogan, who really hadn't been on the radar much at all. The big monster tight end in Rob Gronkowski has not been healthy. He continues to have surgeries and is just banged up. And Tom Brady's game hasn't been as good as it should have been. I mean, we got to look at them here in Week 10 at Nissan Stadium. The Titans just beat the devil out of them. I mean, 34-10, it wasn't even as close as that score is far apart. I like the Chargers in this. Phillip Rivers is playing as good a football as I have seen him at 37 years old, and he's got weapons to do it with. I think the only question mark I have for them on offense is Melvin Gordon has a left and a right knee that's bothering him. He's got a high ankle sprain, a mild one that he's dealing with, but you play through those things. If he can play in this thing to help them, I could see the Chargers going to the AFC Championship game in this thing because I think everybody is wanting New England for that dynasty to finally go away, and I think we may start to see. Just as sure as I say that, they'll win the Super Bowl. But
unless you live in the New England area.
Yeah,
right?
Well, of course. But I like the Chargers there, and the other thing, the Chargers have defense, man. They have got. One of my favorite guys they have on defense is Melvin Ingram. He's an SEC player, and is just a monster. Linebacker, pass rusher, and they've got some weapons there. I like the Chargers in that one.
The only thing that would change my mind if it's going to be blowing snow or crazy kind of weather in New England, which I haven't checked it. Do you even know if
I have not looked at the forecast?
Yeah, that would change my mind a little bit.
Considering where the Chargers play, sure, that's a.
It might even the game up a little bit, I guess.
And it might. You're right.
Yeah.
But again, weather is an equalizer in these games, and the other one is turnovers. And if the Chargers defense can force turnovers, because in that game against Baltimore, Lamar Jackson fumbled 4 times in that deal. So, that's if you get – and here's the other thing, and I've seen it firsthand. It doesn't happen very often, but if you can rattle Tom Brady early and often, you can get him off his mark. You don't have to even hit him as much. You can just, with pressures and hurries, make him uncomfortable in the pocket. And he gets very frustrated, and it throws him off his game.
We're talking with Rhett Bryan, the executive producer for Titans Radio. Here's the casual fan's view on the last game to talk about the Kansas City-Indianapolis game. Tell me why, A, Indianapolis shouldn't go to the Super Bowl with the way they have pulled everything together and the way they've been playing. And B, and here's the bigger one, what people would say, why won't Kansas City lay another egg in the playoffs?
Well, let's go with the last one first. And I'm agreeing. I'm 100% with you because
as great as they have been, and I'll take nothing.
And
away
as
from
brilliant
them.
as a head coach as Andy Reid is, they just don't do it in the postseason. Andy Reid teams don't do it. Now, I'll tell you the main reason why I think they will continue to lay an egg is Kansas City has, as a team that has always prided itself with a defense. They don't have the defense that they used to have. They've got some aging players in some positions. They traded away a player like Marcus Peters that we talked about that went to the Rams, who was a really good corner that has a nose for the ball and can make interceptions left and right. Now, Arrowhead is a difficult place to play in. And again, weather and that crowd, I'd put it up against a lot of different places. It's crazy.
I guess, and again, I haven't checked the weather there. If something goofy happened that would impact the passing game, maybe things change a little bit.
Yeah, if it's a windy deal or a lot of snow or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just look at Andy Reid's body of work in the postseason. When he was the longtime coach of the Eagles, they went to 5 NFC championship games, 1 Super Bowl, and lost that Super Bowl. So the track record's there for to set that up for that. To go back to the Colts in the first part of your question, the Colts have it's really incredible, and it's unfortunate for Titans fans because they're in the same division. What has happened with that team? They hired a new general manager this time about a year ago by the name of Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard was a right-hand man in Kansas City. This guy is a wheeler and dealer, and he has done a magnificent job with drafting, with getting undrafted rookie free agents to contribute. They have the lowest money spent on the defensive side of the ball of any of the 32 teams in the NFL. They only have $38 million they spent on their defense, and that's by a wide margin. Now, it's because they've drafted well, and they have some undrafted rookie free agent kids that have hit. They have a linebacker. And his name escapes me right now. I should know it because we played those guys twice this year. But Darius Leonard, I think is his name, from South Carolina State, who's a rookie. He just was voted All-Pro, and he most tackles by a rookie linebacker in the last 25 years. They took Malik Hooker, another safety or DB from Ohio State a year ago. They've got this is the difference in this is the Colts have defense for the first time in a long time. And then it doesn't hurt that they have Andrew Luck, who came back he missed 18 months of being able to throw.
And some people thought he was done.
There's a lot of, I guarantee you, their front office and their brass thought, I don't know that this guy's ever going to play again. Mm-hmm. Is he exactly the quarterback that he was before? He's not there yet, but he is enough of Andrew Luck that I don't see him having a problem with Kansas City in this deal, just because the Colts have defense. And then they have a young back in Marlon Mack, who has really come on. He had a nice game last week, 148 yards, I think, on the ground, and is a young guy. They have a lot. And here's the crazy thing in all of this. Regardless of whatever they do in this, and I think they go to the AFC Championship game, and they may even go to the Super Bowl just because they got hot at the right time. But they have so many guys. It's just like the Seattle Seahawks of a few years ago when they hit on Russell Wilson at quarterback in the 3rd round and Richard Sherman in the 5th round. They were in a window where they could be competitive because they weren't up against the cap. Well, that's the same thing with this team. Yes, a lot of their cap money goes to Andrew Luck because he's got big money, and T.Y. Hilton, their number 1 receiver. But outside of that, they don't have a lot of money tied up. In fact, going into this new cap year, once the playoffs is over, they're $122 million under the salary.
This is not encouraging news if you're a Titans
No,
fan.
not at all. But it's impressive.
Because the Texans being as good as they are, now you're telling me this about the Colts, and what you're telling me is it's going to be another tough year next year.
Oh, absolutely.
In this division.
I think the Texans will be easier to leap over in the division for the Titans than the Colts will. Yeah. They have some aging players on defense. J.J. Watt's not going to stay healthy forever. Jadeveon Clowney's going to be a free agent pretty soon, and they've got some things to work through.
When you talk about the Colts defense, doesn't this theory make sense, though? When you have a quarterback like Andrew Luck who is going to put up 40 points, and if the offense can put up that many points, it puts the other offense in situations where you can, if your defense is good more in the passing lanes or whatever, I mean, the offense helps that if you're always putting the defense where they just have to, the other team's trying to make up points and they're really good in that, then, I mean, it helps one another in that kind of situation.
But if you're Andrew Luck and you have long, sustained drives, and again, Marlon Mack, I can't stress to you how good a young running back this kid is. He's no Saquon Barkley or anything like that, but he's a very solid young back, and they've got a run game with him. And so if you have long, sustained drives and you wear out that Kansas City defense, then it enables Luck to take a shot to the tight end Eric Ebron or to T.Y. Hilton, who has just shown a propensity to just tear it up, especially in big games. I like the Colts in this for sure. And in fact, it might not even be close at the end. It might be a boat race by the time it's done.
We're talking with Rhett Bryan, the executive producer for Titans Radio. I won't put you in a tough position and ask you for Super Bowl teams, but I'll just make this statement. Would there be anything wrong with a person thinking in the Super Bowl would be the Saints against the Colts?
No.
Would there be any?
Not with the way it's trending right now.
And I think if that happened, it'd be a good Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
And Mercedes-Benz Arena there in Atlanta is where it is. And,
yeah.
But, and those two teams would travel well because they're not that far from that location.
Yeah,
but it would not surprise me to see a New Orleans-Indianapolis Super Bowl. Not at all.
Well, listen, man, thanks for your time. I know 100 people have been wanting your time with everything going on.
Well, here lately it's been the radios and television stations in Milwaukee because they're like, who is this Matt LaFleur guy we just hired? but I'm glad to do it. Marty, I love talking football. It's always fun to talk football.
Yeah, and on these podcasts that we're starting, we'll just, from time to time, when you have time, we'll check in with you.
Glad to.
What's going on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.